Future Now Show. Brought to you by the Club of Amsterdam.
It's 11 a.m. in New York, 4 a.m. in London, 4 p.m. in London, 5 p.m. in Berlin, and 7 p.m. in Moscow. So good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are, welcome. Welcome to the Future Now Show, hosted by the Club of Amsterdam. My name is Simon Jones, and I have the pleasure of moderating this show entitled Living with AI, Wearing It Daily. Our guest today is Peter Cochrane, an engineer of distinction, a thought leader, and a man who walks the talk when it comes to technology innovation. And in keeping with this, we're going to get thoughtful insights, practical examples, and future directions as to how, why, when and where AI-driven applications will impact our lives. Peter will give the presentation and we'll take the questions at the end, and any questions, do so by typing them into the chat box. That's enough from me at the moment. Let's turn it over to Peter and begin the show. Peter.
Thank you, Simon. Let me flip over to my screen. Just let me know if anything goes awry. This entire presentation is based on more or less a lifetime's experience with technology. And I thought I would start by giving you an idea of my mindset and my mode of operation. I try every single technology that I come across, and my matrix is very simple. Does it or does it not improve my life? If it does not improve my life, I reject it, and very often I give the technology away to someone else. If the technology improves my life, I adopt it and try and expand its capability. So if there's a great need for a technology that is unavailable, then I have a habit of actually going out and building it. So when I go back to my childhood, I was an avid reader of science fiction books and comics, and they'd always got this wonderful technology that was so small, so neat, and could do so much stuff. I contrasted that with the radios that were coming my way, World War II stuff, big, bulky, and heavy. And I started to play with it, not knowing what I was doing, but I eventually made a transmitter and was able to talk to the United States at the age of 15. I then built a transistor version in 1964, and very shortly after that, I departed this scene for university after years at college. And in that role as head of research at British Telecom, I engenders the same motivating attitude, if you will. So in 1991, I had all the facilities of an iWatch on something rather bigger, plus a set of augmented reality glasses, i.e. Google Glass. Now, what's not shown here is a little bit of a cheat in that from that unit on my arm and from that unit on my head were cables that went up my arm, up my sleeve, over my shoulder, and down my back and down my trouser leg to a room containing 5 VAX computers. Now, those 5 VAX computers are now smaller in capability than my iWatch. I made this comparison because most people do not actually, or it does not register with them, how fast the technology is moving.
And I'm going to have a look at the chair.
Paramedic Keith Hotchkiss wears a headset with a mini TV in front of his right eye, a microphone, headphones, and a mini camera. He's linked via satellite and special telephone lines to the hospital.
Okay, Alan, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Right, we've got a 35-year-old gent involved in an RTA, front impact, high speed. He's complaining of difficulty with breathing, and the trachea is swinging to the left. I think this gent's got a tension pneumothorax of his right side, so I'm going to decompress it now.
Yeah, you're going to have to put a drain in. Have you done one before?
I'm only on a mannequin.
Right, now what I'm going to do...
Consultant Alan Jones in Accident and Emergency can guide the paramedic through the procedure, sending a diagram of the chest to the TV screen in his headset.
Put a picture of a chest. Can you see the chest?
Yeah, got that.
Drop to the second intercostal space where my arrow is. That's where you'll need to put in a brown gauge cannula.
Going in now. Okay.
So that work was with Ipswich Hospital. They thought this technology was really quite revolutionary. It put the surgeon right down to the point where he was first needed. Those first few minutes after a crash are vital. We also worked with a bomb disposal in the UK and the US Air Force at Wright-Patterson Air Base. And they actually adopted something very similar to this. And they got to the point where documentation for one of their fighter aircraft would more than fill a jumbo jet. And so they reduced that to a CD at the time, and that kind of a headset was used. And of course, the recovery of the information and the processing of the information was all important. So what is actually happening here? If we look at this graph, about 2015, things start to happen with AI big time. Remember, it's been on the go now for over 70 years. And once we got to about 1 billion transistors per chip, AI started to take off. I've put a sequitur there. Very often people equate transistors to neurons, and that is actually quite wrong. It takes more than a transistor to replicate a neuron. And so we now have a situation in 2025 where we have crossed the 100 billion transistors in a chip. Now these kind of numbers are really quite powerful because we start to see computers that are comparable with biological waveforms that might be simple. Now there's a subtlety here. We build, as a species, extremely complex machines to do rather simple things. Mother Nature configures biological elements that are essentially simple, and we get very complex outcomes. And we're learning a few tricks by studying biology. But what we're building is no means a direct copy of biology. It is a new species, if you will. So a progressive adoption since 2022. Document précis and reading and editing. In 1993, I got one of my team to attack this because even at that time, in the late 80s, we were getting overwhelmed by paper. And what I mean in terms of paper is published papers and articles. And today, it's even worse. The academics are under pressure all the time to publish more and more stuff. So we have the situation where most of it isn't worth reading. And finding the kernels in this morass of data is really quite tough. And AI does a really good job. So I've used it for some time to take journals and filter the contents and then make the decision which of the bits am I going to read, or is it even worth reading in the first place. A third feature is I'm using hyper-subject search based on project context, i.e. If I go and use Google and I search AI or robotics, I just get a very popular result. What I'm looking for is generally results that are pertinent to the work that I'm doing. I've not done this yet, but it has always been my dream that AI would monitor everything I do, all my searches, all my reading, all my emails, all my messages of all form, and deduce what would be useful when I ask for data. That has yet to come. The other thing that I've pursued has been voice I/O for fast queries, for definitions, timelines, detail, and it saves me having to actually type fully or with a one-finger keyboard effectively. AI is built into my home now. There are AI units all over the home. We control some lights with AI. Many of our office appliances and domestic appliances have got the ability for us to talk to them. Some are good, some are not so good. My vehicle is particularly appalling in its interface with voice, and I always find it paradoxical that possibly the best interface out there for speech comes from a retail company and not a technology company, i.e. Amazon. Document filtering, progressive reduction to bullet points, I find very powerful. If I could have another feature that would look at all my documents, file them appropriately so that I don't have to, that would be an absolute boon and save me an awful lot of time, and it's well within the ability of the AI to do that. And the other thing that I'm doing is integrating AIs into all wearable technologies that I own, and so hence the title. So I've done an example for you here. This article is from MIT. It looks to be quite an interesting article. Should I or should I not use my time wisely to read it? So here it is, reduced down to 5 bullet points. And with this amount of abstraction, I've probably got something of the order of 85% of all the content of the paper will be in front of me right now. So if I do read the paper, I'm only going to get a 15% increase or thereabouts on this information, but I can read this really quickly. So again, I asked Claude, is it really worth me reading this? And he's given me 2 answers, yes and a no. It depends really on my infatuation with toys and things like that. Well, in this particular case, I can remember this robot, and I actually dismantled one when I was a child, and indeed the mechanism was both devious and magnificent at the same time. I'm not sure I'm going to get anything from reading more than those 5 bullet points, and so job done. This is an unfortunate and on another level fortunate occurrence. My wife and I were on vacation in Wales. We were on a road, there was nobody else on the road, and we were doing about 40 miles an hour, and a young man fiddling with his GPS or his mobile phone or whatever came out of a side road at 50 miles an hour and took us out. Jane got out of the car and wandered around and had to drag me out. And my sudden realization was I could no longer hear. The airbags undoubtedly saved my life and that of my wife, but there was a cost, and it's 174 dBA. Now, you have to think of Concord at about 115 to 120 dBA. Makes you put your fingers in your ears. This just destroyed my hearing. That actually presented a new opportunity space, perversely. At the time, I was helping a hearing aid manufacturer, and I was doing a study for them on building healthcare sensors and apps into hearing aids. And when I'd done that, they gave me a pair of hearing aids. In fact, the week after, entirely by accident, fortuitously would be a better word, entirely fortuitously, they gave me a pair of their latest hearing aids a week after that car accident. And then I upgraded them to the very latest. Now, this is partially where my title comes from. These hearing aids have got embedded AI. The signal processing is quite remarkable. They do echo cancellation, they do noise cancellation, they do beam steering, and I have an additional component on trial, which is an extra 4 microphones in a bar that I can put on the front of my shirt. So each one of these units has 4 microphones, and they are the best hearing aids that I can get. And they have caused me some celebration and some frustration at times. What people do not recognize is that hearing aid, the word is aid operative, does not restore your hearing perfectly. It helps you, but you finish with a degraded hearing. So my biggest degradation is that my dynamic range now is down to 60 dBs. And so I cannot hear the full dynamic range of an orchestra. With pop music, it doesn't seem to make a lot of difference with much of the music because it's just at a very high level, and I can cope with that. But when music goes from a very low level to a very high level, it's difficult to cope with. But the AI in these devices have become an active part of my life, and so I now see myself in this mode. These are all the AI devices that I am currently wearing or carrying. They're all linked together. They all work together, and they all are part of my experiment of fitting in with a modern world of intelligent things and, to be honest, hyper intelligent people. There's no doubt about it that AI amplifies human capability. It helps if you have some a priori knowledge or experience, and you can ask the question, is that a reasonable answer? AI makes mistakes, but not quite as many as mistakes as human beings, and therein lies its advantage. So what I thought I would do is just demonstrate a couple of things. Now, normally what I would do is tap my hearing aid. The agent would appear in my ear. I would talk to her, and then she would deliver the results. I spent more than half a day yesterday trying to get the audio signal out of my ear into this channel. I had small microphones in my ear. I tried everything. And the big problem is it's actually very difficult to break into or distribute a Bluetooth stream. And so I've had to resort to a very crude simulation, and I'll just see if I can get these to work sufficiently well for you. Hey Siri. Hey Siri. Hey Siri. Where's Jane? Have you seen Jane?
14 minutes ago. It looks like Jane Cochrane was right around here.
Thank you. So at any time of the day and night, I can ask where my wife is, where my car is, and so on, which is quite a good security tool. Jane, by the way, can do the same. And so if we are traveling, it is quite useful to know where people are at times. So an interesting experiment in security. Hey Siri, what's the population of New York? Hey Siri, what is the population of New York? She's not going to do this for me. I'll just give this one more time. Hey Siri, what is the population of New York? Hey Siri, connect me to, oh, I've got a failure on my arms. I'm sorry about that, but it's, let me just give this another go and see if I can get it. Come on. Hey Siri, what is the population of New York? No, she's not going to do it. Let me see if I can get Alexa to come up. Hey Alexa, what's the population of New York?
Good afternoon, Peter. According to the 2020 US Census, the population of New York is 20.2 million people, which is a 4.2% increase over the 2010 US Census.
And, Alexa, what is the population of London?
In 2019, the population of London was 8.99 million people.
Alexa, do you know the number associated with Planck's constant? Apparently not. That one's too tough. Alexa, what's the distance to the sun? So this is actually quite a good demonstration from this point of view. At the moment, the AIs are incomplete, and they have capabilities, and one is more suited to a scientific or an engineering task than a sociological or some kind of view of society. And you have to find the ones that fit. Now, what is interesting is with this setup I've got at the moment, I am able to address Siri and Alexa and Chat GPT. I've not quite got Chat GPT going sufficiently well. But all of this I can do without anybody else hearing. And it's quite a life changer. I can sit at my desk and instead of having to type for a statistic, I can ask for it and find it. It's actually quite difficult to do and simulate, and very easy when these new hearing aids are actually operating. So what next? I'm going to continue with this line of living and experimenting, and then I'm figuring having an assessment of what the return on investment is. Where am I getting the best or the greatest benefit? What works well and what doesn't work quite so well? Then I can modify my technology. I can modify my behavior and become even more efficient. At a modest estimate, I would say that adopting AI has more than tripled my work output in terms of getting from a starting point to a finishing point quickly, efficiently, and with less pain, if you will. So I'm looking now at where this goes inside companies, I'm collaborating with a few people, and this is by no means the end of the story. So I'm going to give you a prediction, and this one really worries people. But throughout nature and throughout technology, I think this applies. And it is that things that think want to link, and things that link want to think. So I've been predicting for some time that we will see the emergence of intelligences unintended by mankind, configured by the technology, and it doesn't have to be AI that's doing this. And my favorite for emergent activity is actually the Internet of Things, where I think people have got the estimates wrong. I don't think that we're going to see billions of IoT things. I think we're going to see trillions of IoT things. And the biggest challenge with all of this is the amount of energy that is being used. The reality is that the people on the software side of the chain have been used to ever more bandwidth processing power being there and it being free. The bad news is it's no longer free, it's getting more expensive, and I think we have to look at the hardware. When we have people buying power stations, nuclear power stations, or half a nuclear power station to run their servers for AI, it seems to me a little crazy. A comparison would be China with Huawei. Their 5G network, their towers are consuming about 11 to 12 kilowatts each. They've got about 30 nuclear power stations running their 5G network, and the 6G guys seem to want to go up to 20 kilowatts. Well, big question, what are we getting for that 20 kilowatts per base station and all those nuclear power stations? And that is going to be a similar occurrence. Me walking around with all this equipment doesn't come for free. And I think there's going to be an engineering point where we have to think again about the way we're doing things. On the positive side, there are new materials emerging above and beyond silicon that look like they will allow Moore's law to continue and do so using less energy. And that's a really positive move. So, thank you for your attention. This is discussion time. If you have a strong interest in this topic, I suggest you have a look at mightycursor.com and have a look at their demonstrations. It's one of the companies that I'm collaborating with, and one of the companies that have solutions that we could all use. They are making the interfaces much simpler, more user-friendly, and very, very more powerful.
Great. Peter, thank you very much for that. It's time for questions. If you have any questions, please put them in the text box so that everyone can see them. And we're ready to start right now. So please, let me have some questions. If not, I'm always happy to ask some of my own, but let's hear from the audience first of all. All right. In the meantime, let me start off with some questions. I had a pre-prepared list of questions. Don't feel free to answer them all, Peter. But I'll do that in the meantime. And if any of the audience want to bring in questions, when they come in, we'll jump to their questions. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Tommy, we've got one from Tommy. Thank you, Tommy.
Oh, that's a nice question. Yep. AI can be used in two directions. And I think all governments have got an authoritarian streak. I'm always amused by the alarmist view that China's listening to everybody and they're the big spies. And in the United States, we've got the CIA, and the US has always been pretty much a police state in many regards. And so I don't think there is any government that is not tempted to use the technology to their advantage in some way. Now, that's, I think, great if it's defending the nation and looking after the people, but when it comes to manipulating populations or disadvantaging people, keeping them poor or whatever, it's a disgrace. I think North Korea is a really good example of one that is despicable. I think the Russian people have been held in sort of poor situation for a long time, and it's evident from the way they fight war that they give little regard for human life. I don't think that the Western nations are necessarily totally innocent in their use of technology, but I would like to hope that they're doing it for the best of intention, and that is to try and keep people safe. In my view, the number one requirement of any government body is the welfare of the people it is representing. So I just look at all technologies as having an upside and a downside. And, you know, there's a hammer is such a wonderful tool and allowed people to build houses a lot faster. But then it became a murder weapon when some guy killed his wife with a hammer. It doesn't matter what you make. And I've worked in defense, for example, and I've always held that I wouldn't go over the line of making anything that would kill people. I would always stay on the line, on the side of the line where you're trying to save lives. But guess what? Somebody will take what you've made and they'll use it in an evil way. It just happens.
Coming in, Peter, about what's going on in Sweden.
Yep, yeah, I've seen this stuff. This is brilliant. If I could get it, I'd have it. Here's a scenario. In my past, I've traveled an awful lot, and I've always carried information with me. But the big problem is if you get hit by a taxi in New York, and how are they going to get your medical records? They're not. They're not going to know the vital things about you, and they could kill you in trying to treat you, not knowing what's happening. And so having your medical record implanted in your arm is just brilliant as far as I'm concerned. But being able to buy everything by just waving your hand, or opening doors by just waving your hand, is terrific. The paranoid will see this as a way of trying to control you or find you, listen to you, and all kinds of things. And I'm afraid if the dark side of the force wants to do that, they can do it anyway. There's enough technology around to do that very easily. But the Nordic nations are really forward-looking. In the UK, we have people starting campaigns to prevent the disappearance of cash. I mean, it's crazy. I've not used cash for 5 years, and all my transactions are digital. I don't want to use cash, but there are businesses that run cash only. They're hanging on to this old idea. They want to have the king's face on the coinage and etc. It's medieval.
Let's explore that in a little bit more detail. For people who don't have access to the chat stream, the question was about people in Sweden having implants replacing IDs and these chips. The issue with implants as opposed to wearables, where do you see that going? I mean, a lot of people say these chips could be in a ring that you could wear, and there are biometric rings now that pick your health up.
Okay, I think is the bottom line. The bottom line is you've got a choice. You can carry a paper or a cardboard passport. You can have it on a plastic card like a driving license, or you can have it as a chip implant. What do you want? Your choice. Doesn't matter. What I would have is the chip implant.
Okay. Makes upgrading a bit more serious matter.
Yeah. People get up to a little bit uptight about a lot of these things. In fact, all manner of change immediately strikes fear in people. Not understanding something makes people fearful, and I can actually throw a few rocks at my own profession for not taking the time out to explain to people what this stuff is about. If you go into a hospital, one of the biggest problems is them getting at your record fast enough to save your life.
Yep.
You know, they need to know that if you're diabetic, it's important that they know that. If you're prone to heart problems, they need to know it immediately. And the delays in that getting that kind of information are quite profound. And being able to do it instantaneously will save your life.
Okay, great. Okay, here we've got some more questions coming for you. Take your pick as to which one of these you want to answer, Peter, and I'll read them out loud.
Well, I think that's all the questions, unless I'm not seeing all of them. But
There should be 7 come to you now.
7. Oh, right. I don't see 7.
Well, here's the first one. What are going to be the big wins in the use of AI in wearables? Where do you see the major impact?
Sorry, say the first word again. What am I going to do about?
No, where do you see the big wins? What are going to be the major impacts in terms of
I
people?
can tell you those straight off.
Great.
Right now, AI is saving millions of lives. It's in all the scanners in all the hospitals. It's actually feeding most of the planet. If you take AI out, we have no logistics system. If you go to all the retail operations, they're all run with AI. If you go to warehouses, they're run by AI. Manufacturing is run by AI. So it's not a question of what is it going to do. It's already doing it. If you were to switch the AI off, all AI off, millions and millions of people would die.
Okay.
One of the features of technology is it's like a ratchet. It only goes one way, and people ought to be worried about not being able to catch a rabbit and skin it and cook it. They can't do that. They can't do that anymore, and so they bemoan the loss of skills. But if I have a choice of buying something built by a human being and something built by a robot, I will have the product made by the robot because I know I will get good quality. You do not get good quality jet engines by having
No, indeed not.
human beings milling the blades. You really don't.
Okay.
It's done by automated processes. And so I think there's another sort of feature of our society is people have become decoupled from the mechanisms of supply, demand, supply, wealth generation. They have these very interesting views of how a farm should be, which frankly would not feed the number of people we've got on the planet. And we can't all have Rolls-Royce cars. And we have got Rolls-Royce cars. In fact, the cars that come off the automated production line are now better than the ones that are hand-built by people like Bentley and Rolls-Royce.
Yes, true. Next question, number 2. Who do you think are likely to be the future big players in terms of company? The internet revolution brought Google, Amazon, and Facebook. Who are
Yes.
likely to be the future big players?
I think they will most likely come out of China and uh, India. Um, India is trying to get into manufacture, but has a much better record in software services and things like that. To name a company, um, I've asked this question many times. Why are there no big companies in Europe? Not one. We
Yeah.
don't have, a 900 billion company or an 800 billion company or a trillion
Yeah.
company in Europe.
That segues into question 3, which was how can Europe compete?
Well, there are several features, and we've seen this happen in the United States, where for some reason it becomes fashionable to be ignorant,
Hmm.
and education is not valued. So it's become appalling in the United States. I would hate to see it um, in the UK, Europe at large. But I was looking at a table of education capability, and the UK was number 5. Um, I can't remember who was above. I know Brussels were above. It was a couple of UK and a couple of European states, and then there was one or two in Southeast Asia. United States was below the UK. Now, what's happening at the moment in the US is an attempt to destroy science and engineering and the creation of knowledge, and to actually make the population dumber in a way. Here's a characteristic that I don't understand. If I was to walk into a room and pronounce that I'd never read any of the classics, I would be deemed an ignoramus. But people in the room will proudly tell me they know nothing about mathematics or science.
Yeah, no, I've
You know,
experienced it.
they're actually proud of not knowing. They will boast about not knowing anything about technology, which is a paradox to me. And I think one of the reasons is we're not actually paying sufficient to get really good teachers into the schools. The reason people can't do mathematics or understand science is bad teaching.
Yep, I agree.
It's just bad teaching. Yeah.
Looking into the future, Peter, what do you think we can expect to see in developments in 2026? What's just over the horizon?
Wow. I think the technology, the AI, is going to become more human. I think the robotics is going to become more human. I think it will be subsumed by people because it'll be difficult not to. My attitude is if there is any technology that will make my life easier and richer, so I can spend more time doing interesting things uh, rather than cutting the grass or something, I will buy a machine to do it. The form of that machine, uh, I, I really don't mind. But we have this problem. China has this problem. India will shortly have this problem, and that is we have incredibly old populations.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
We do not have enough young people on the planet to look after the old people. Now, 20 years ago, the Japanese started developing robots for that very task. Um, China is now starting to put effort into robots for that very task. And if I can remember getting up at meetings 40, 50 years ago and saying, training more doctors is not going to solve this problem.
Yeah.
You know, the rate at which you can train medics will be overwhelmed by the generation of old people. And as we get more of them, the ailments will become wider and more severe and require more money and more attention, and society can't afford to do it. We need a new model. You know, first of all,
Okay.
you try and keep the society fit and feed them good food, but then you can provide the supporting technology. And it's quite pitiful to see the number of people that become so physically degraded they can't walk. And things like exoskeletons and that sort of thing could help an awful lot of people. So I think in a word, I think what's going to happen in the next few years is this technology will be more and more humanized, more and more acceptable. And there's if anybody's not knows about it, but it's worth having a look at a subject called Uncanny Valley.
Yes.
An Uncanny Valley is really interesting because a robot that is clearly a robot is more acceptable than a female or a male robot that's really trying to be human but isn't quite.
Yes, indeed.
It gets very threatening very, very quickly. So I think there's going to be some interesting interactions in that direction.
A few kind of more critical pushback questions. I mean, is this déjà vu all over again? I mean, we could have said this about expert systems in the early 1980s. We could have said this about knowledge-based technologies in the 90s or neural networks. I mean, in the end, we're not talking about intelligence, are we? We're talking about Bayesian statistics with a very large data set and the computational resource to do things with it.
Yeah.
That all suggests that what we're going to see, like those previous technologies, is linear improvements, not exponential ones. What's the case for the Big Bang?
Okay, so here's a difficulty for me. I don't discuss religion because it can't go anywhere. And discussing what is intelligence can't go anywhere either.
No, true.
And the big problem is, excuse my French, so much bullshit is being propagated about AI. You
Yep.
have to have a whiskey and focus on what the actual truth is. Now, the exponentiation is absolutely visible with all our technological advances in terms of the number of people with a mobile phone. That has gone up exponentially. What has that resulted in? It's resulted in farmers in banana republics able to get their goods to market, able to sell them, able to lift their standard of living, get their children educated and things like that. So on the bigger scale, I look at all of this and I think if we do not get everybody on this planet to some level of equitable standard of living, we're never going to stop having wars and turmoil and strife. Whilst you can sit here and look at the current situation, the reality is fewer people are now being killed than 20 years ago, even with this war in Europe and in the Middle East and what have you. In my naivety as a young man, I really did think we would grow up enough during my lifetime to stop. But oh no, the human race does not stop. And it takes a wonderful technology like AI and turns it into a killing machine. So
Indeed, that's us. So let's talk about the use of AI, because I went to a presentation by Benedict Evans a couple of weeks ago.
yeah,
And his argument is that he doesn't see clear use cases because the people who have access to Gemini or ChatGPT or whatever are using it at most once or twice a week. I mean, if it is going to be persuasive, it's got to be persistent. And where are the use cases then? What's your response to Benedict's perspective?
I just love this question. My favorite the most stupid management speak question is there is no user business case. There's no business case for this technology. Well, there was no business case for a bicycle, for a sewing machine, for a car, for a telephone, nothing. What is actually happening in front of our very eyes, but I don't think we actually see it. And I look at it like this. My father probably did 3 or 4 times more work than my grandfather. I've certainly done tens of times more work than my father because of the technology.
Mhm.
I expect my sons and daughters to do much more than I. So I'll give you one example. My youngest son works for a medical company. He doesn't like being a manager particularly, so he's transformed the role. And what he's done, he's taken all his management functions and he's automated them. He's suddenly become the most efficient manager in the company. He's got the best turnover and the best profitability and the best results.
Okay. Good for you. Good
Because
for him.
and so the CEO of the company's found this, gone down to see him and said, "Oh, how are you doing this?" And he's shown him, and he said to him, "I now want you to roll this out right across the company."
Yeah, there you are. If you
I
build
don't-
it, they will come, eh?
Yeah. So it takes a while for any technology to be impactful, but my God, when it does become impactful, it changes the name of the game. I can empathise with what he was saying because my wife's an artist. I'm an engineer scientist, and I didn't get into this as fast as I might have because you've got this pile of work to do. It's like that machine gun salesman and in the middle of a battle with the Indians, and he says, "Go away, I'm busy."
Yes, that's the urgent drives out the important, does it not?
And you have to carve out the time to grab this technology, use it, get used to it, and sort of start clearing the backlog up and things like this. And that's what I've actually done. It's one of these things I feel very irritated about with modern industry. There's very little playtime. It's lost 2 things. One, there's virtually no humour. 2, there's no playtime. And the whole tenet is it's got to be efficient. Well, if you make things efficient, they become brittle. And that applies to machines, it applies to people and organisms, and it applies to society and companies.
Nice.
You need a little bit of slack in there so that somebody is looking after what's coming or where things are going wrong and where solutions are coming from. It was one of the most powerful benefits, if you like, to BT is that they had 1,000 people on one side doing playful things which were transformative. I'll tell you one. A lot of this I didn't tell the company until it was successful, because they would have stopped it. But I set up a group, and their entire life was to study ants. How the heck can ants solve these maze problems and so very, very efficiently, and yet they're such simple organisms? What came out of that? We actually mixed artificial life and artificial intelligence and created a solution to the traveling salesman problem that could be solved on my then laptop faster than any supercomputer.
Oh,
The
impressive.
trick was it didn't get exactly the right result. Now, why that wasn't important to us is we were looking at fleet management and we were looking at managing mobile networks. And there's a lot of uncertainty what the customers are going to do. But in the first year of deploying this man management system, we saved 200 million. It was a massive instantaneous, and it had cost a pittance to do. The profit margin on it was huge. And then I can't remember there was a company in the United States called MCI, Microwave Communications Incorporated, and it ultimately became part of WorldCom with Bernie Ebbers, an old name, and we put this software in to control their mobile network. We doubled the capacity of their mobile network for no more hardware build.
Oh, that's impressive.
So this was the stunning outcome of investing in something that was abstract that would actually yield something so very powerful.
Okay.
And
Very good.
what the big problem was, managers couldn't understand it and engineers couldn't understand it, and so they didn't like it.
Oh,
But I've held for a lot of my career, we are way past the point where we can exhaustively test our systems. We just can't do it. Combinatorially, it's huge. So you have to test it as best you can and then pray a little bit.
sounds like a job for artificial intelligence.
Yes, exactly.
Peter, I mean, we're coming to the end of the show. If there are any final questions from our audience, please type them in now. I can't see any hands moving. So all that remains really is to thank Peter for his many insights and his charming and very articulate delivery. I think we've learned a lot more about AI and its potential. And as I said, he's a guy who walks the talk. So thank Peter for his many insights. Thank Felix Bopp here for making the Club of Amsterdam and the Future Now show working. My name's Simon Jones. Tune into the Future Show next time for more insights into the things that are going to happen. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. All right.